Got him in.
Well, that was remarkable. Thank you, Elon.
All right.
We kept the mobile team.
No, I'll send him a note this afternoon and say, hey, there's an opportunity for you. I have a suggestion or two. So, all right.
There we go. We got it. Once again, Bryan, thank you so much for hanging in there with the technical difficulties.
Oh, this is
And of course,
this is awesome. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody else for hanging in there. Welcome everybody. We are Metallicus Live, here to bring you all of the awesome insights from so many esteemed guests from all around the financial and fintech industries. I'm your host, Eric Lyons, and I have the absolute pleasure today to introduce you to Bryan Hubbard. He is our former Deputy Comptroller of the OCC and now the current advisory board of Metallicus as of this year. But I want to hear from Bryan's own words. Bryan, so if I may ask you, who is Bryan Hubbard?
Oh my goodness. So I suppose we should start with I was a young man once, a long time ago. But no, I have spent 30 years in the federal space, helping create opportunities, a lot of them in technology. I started off helping put the Air Force online in the mid-90s. And we revolutionized how the Air Force talked to the public. And then the second half of my career was spent in the banking space, in banking regulation. You mentioned the OCC. That stands for the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And we regulate all national banks. So we regulate about $13 trillion in the banking system, and all of the big national banks that are household names we oversaw. And as deputy controller, I helped lead that team's efforts in the public space regarding industry outreach, media outreach, and help develop policies and vision around technology.
Wow, that is amazing.
It was a lot. It was a lot of fun.
So so let's talk about that. Having an extension, like an extensive background in the federal government, that includes sectors such as the OCC. What prompted you to look into cryptocurrency outside of traditional finance?
Sure. Well, it started before crypto for me. So in 2014 and 2015, I was part of a small team at the comptroller's office looking at the future of banking. What was going to allow bank to survive another 200 years and meet the needs of the nation? Because at the OCC, yes, we were regulators, but we were responsible for the future of the national banking system. And we recognized that banks couldn't continue to operate the way they had always operated. They needed to embrace their competitors and these new technologies and the new ways that people like you and like me wanted to access and control their money. Think about it. For 200 years, you had to go to a bank to get your money. You had to go to a bank at one point to pay your bills. And today, that's just not how people live and work. So that was very exciting for me. And that started in the fintech era that quickly became really the crypto area. Now, that began in 2015 when I helped then Comptroller Tom Curry coin the phrase responsible innovation. We used it first. We used it first in a speech in 2015, and it really became a buzzword and a movement in the regulation space, and really is now incorporated into Gary Gensler's views and other views. And perhaps that's done more damage than good. And I can talk about how that really handicaps innovation and creativity when it comes to how regulators interact with companies like Metallicus.
Please, by all means.
So when we coined the phrase responsible innovation, it came out of an era where we were looking at the dangers of consumer protection rather than looking at how technology could really democratize access to credit in the United States and around the world. Later, when acting controller Brian Brooks came in, he brought a different view and a different energy specifically towards the crypto world, and recognized that banking was becoming anachronistic. Banking had become a privileged state. It had become a tool that, while it did great things to expand access and community reinvestment, it really was not the way emerging democracies, emerging communities around the globe needed their financial services. And we started talking about things about how crypto could be used in emerging countries to reward people that were working positively to support their communities. So, because you could put all of those good deeds on the chain, you could reward individuals for education. You could reward individuals on the chain for opportunities in democracy building. And you could use that to really be a force for good inherently in the chain. And so responsible innovation ended up being a way to slow down innovation and slow down creativity while regulators could catch up. And we're still catching up. Rather than looking at innovation in ways that really revolutionize the way we think about money, because that's really scary to regulators. Regulators' job is to avoid risk and make sure that the existing system work well. So in some ways, all of the rules that were created are about incumbent protection. And that put up barriers for emerging companies like MetalPay and others that kept them out of the banking system rather than letting their tools and benefits benefit the millions of people who actually work and live and depend on the banks around the world.
I'm just trying to process all of it.
Is that big enough for you?
Oh, it's quite all right. It's doing just nicely. So in your words, what would be next?
Well, what's next is we're still in the process of coming in from the wild. And what I mean by that is regulation exists for two reasons. Yes, it exists to make sure the incumbent system works well, but it also has to be a way to normalize what is revolutionary so that the average person, ma and pa kettle in Peoria, Illinois, can trust that new thing, that new sparkly, dazzling thing is safe, that there's someone behind it, and that their country can rely on it. And that's a big concept when you think about revolutionizing a banking system, because let me just talk about how banks operate. Banks only do three things. Three. They pay checks, they take deposits, and they lend money. That's it. That sounds very simple. But in the rest of the world, in all of the other industries, laws and regulations tell you what you can't do. In order to be in the banking system, you have to operate under what is an authorized activity. That means in that world, that small, special, privileged world of banking, you are told what you can do. So it inverts regulation and laws in that little space where banks can only do what they're told they can do, while innovators and entrepreneurs like MetalPay are looking for what they can do. They just want to be told, what can I do? What are the guardrails that on this super highway that I'm on, rather than in a banking world, what are the few things that it's okay for me to do? And it's that tension that really is at the heart of why innovators in Silicon Valley and bankers on Madison Avenue don't speak the same language.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like, just like how you said, a lot of these innovators, especially platforms such as Metallicus and MetalPay, it's just figuring out the possibilities, and that's where it ultimately boils down to. It's just making the possibilities endless for people like you and me and everybody else that's listening, and just being able to understand this foreign concept that has been what some would say been more traditional as of for the last
Oh,
200
right.
years. And I can see how it can be a scary concept, especially not only to the regular mom and pop Joe Schmoes, and don't want to say that, but also to those that are in positions of power, and being able to regulate. It sounds like just still a foreign concept.
It is, and you fear the unknown. So you
Right.
asked me what got me excited about crypto and why I was interested in joining the board of advisors at Metallicus. And it's because
Yeah.
I speak the language of both worlds, and I saw that the innovators and the entrepreneurs were speaking past regulators, and because they weren't speaking the same language, we weren't making much progress. And what we
Mm-hmm.
needed, and what I thought I could help with, is find a way to allow and to enable creators like yourselves speak to regulators in a way that helps them understand the opportunity. And what's really exciting
Right.
about Metal Pay and Metallicus and all the great work that Marshall and Lee are doing is they're building in the concerns that regulators have into the DNA of the products. They're building in things like know your customer. They're building in
Yeah.
they're making those chains safe for, as I said, ma and pa kettle in Peoria, where it makes sense. When I write a check, my name's on it, my address is on it, and and
Yes.
and there's a certainty with my identity. I'm standing behind it. My bank is standing behind it. You need the same sort of clarity in the crypto world for people to trust it, because banking is fundamentally a confidence and trust endeavor. And so that's why I wanted to get involved. And that's why I was excited about Metal Pay and Metallicus and the work that they were doing there, because I heard them talking more similarly to the way we were talking in the regulatory space in 2015 and 2016 than anyone else I've ever heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Can you, going back to things such as KYC, and how it's so similar to having your name on an address that is associated with your check. Um, there's a lot of folks that are out there, especially in the earlier days of crypto, the early
Yeah.
2010s, for instance, where this concept of cryptocurrency and this concept of DeFi is just keeping everything keeping everything behind the curtain, that there isn't much identifiers, especially theoretically speaking. Why does that need to change now, and why is KYC so important in that opinion?
Uh, so one of the things that had developed since 9/11 was the
Mm-hmm.
concern and the recognition that bad people use good things for bad purposes. And what I mean by
Right.
that is you had billions of dollars in terrorist financing, you have billions of dollars in drug and illicit purposes flowing over the pipeline of the existing banking system. What the fear was is in a system where anonymity was impossible to pierce,
Right.
would that be worse? But the reality
I would
is,
agree.
um, a completely auditable chain, the distributed ledger, actually can make that safer and protect your privacy. Because privacy and anonymity are not the same thing. And people misunderstood that in 2010. Privacy is
Mm-hmm.
this is my identity. These are my personal things that I own, and they are mine. I choose to provide you that information. You, my bank, have a responsibility to protect it. And that's true in almost any contract environment that you're in. And fundamentally, a token or a blockchain entry is a contractual endeavor where you're pledging something and you're standing behind something. So while the parties may be private, they are not and should never be anonymous. If you understand the difference that I'm trying to make between
I
privacy
do.
and anonymity.
I
Yeah.
do. I most certainly understand.
Yeah.
Would you say that's where some of those lines intersect between traditional banking, blockchain technology, and of course holding digital assets is between that privacy versus anonymity?
I think the blockchain can actually solve the long-standing problem and tension within traditional banking regarding 100% identity and auditability while protecting privacy. I see that as a means to improve on the existing system. And at the same time, you're going to be revolutionizing opportunities, and you're going to find opportunities that you and I haven't begun to imagine yet. But it solves an old problem.
Yes, I hear you. I hear you.
But I will tell you, we're talking about the netherworld and the illicit uses of technology. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Blockchain and cryptocurrency aren't alone there, right?
How so?
Every time technology advances, there are people who want to pervert it for illicit purposes. Today, if you walk into a drug baron's home, you're not going to find stacks of Bitcoin. You're still going to find stacks of dollar bills.
Right.
So the idea that a technology is inherently good or bad, that's bad thinking. It is actually how we apply things, and regulation is required to help provide those guardrails that protect national security, protect against illicit, illegal purposes, and then provide fairness to the market through transparency and other guardrails.
And do you feel like there's a lot more optimism, especially from these banking sectors, these regulators, and even just the general consensus of everybody within the crypto communities and outside of the communities having these discussions, dialogues? Do you feel like there's optimism there?
So there's absolutely optimism in the boardrooms. There's recognition that change is a coming, and we got to be on board. And the change is going to reduce things and make things work even better. I know of companies today that are originating mortgages entirely on the chain. And what that
Mm-hmm.
does, it reduces um, origination origination costs by a point or two. What that means is the chain today is making mortgages more affordable for people seeking homes, and it's making mortgage origination more efficient for those in the business. That seems like a very positive thing, and people are recognizing the potential to generate value in those kind of use cases. Um, at the same time that there's optimism, every now and then we see people screw up, and
Mm-hmm.
they set us back months and sometimes years. And every oops that I've seen that erases 1,000 attaboys, every oops has not been a result of the technology. It has been the
Right.
result of human failings that exist in any emerging and young industry. We've seen it time and time again in other industries and other companies. As things are new and as industries are maturing, you see these things. But it's not inherent in the technology. It is a failing of business management, it's a failing of risk management, and it's a lack of clarity around the regulatory expectations.
Ah. the lack of clarity. So that's where having literacy and having an overall understanding and having these dialogues, that's where it all boggles down
That's
to.
right. That's
Wow.
right. And if you could, in a perfect world that I hope to be a part of someday, if you could build regulation, all the regulatory requirements into the chain, into the chain itself, wouldn't that be a better world?
I feel like that is a rhetorical question.
Well, I'm sure the listeners have some idea.
Exactly. We leave that up to the people here. But no, absolutely. So you talk about what you hope to do with this in the future and how you can contribute and make this innovative, better world and involving with the regulation and literacy. It's how did that? Out of curiosity, how did that bring you over to Metallicus?
Well, I had left the federal space after more than 30 years of advising 7 different heads of the agency through 4 different presidential administrations. And I was consulting in the financial services space around some of the ideas and work I did with the OCC. And a friend of mine who knew Lee Woolley, who's the head of banking there at Metallicus, and introduced me. And I got a chance to talk with him and with Marshall, and I was very excited about what they were trying to do with their technology and services. Anytime that you believe and really work towards enabling fair and safe interaction with a new technology and making it easier for everyone to do, I was excited about that. I was around when Mosaic introduced images to the web browser in 1993. Okay, and when you did that, I recognized that, wow, in the next couple of years, people in West Africa are going to be able to download entire libraries in minutes. And that was going to change the world because it was going to change the access to knowledge. When I talk with Marshall and Lee and folks like Brian Brooks, I recognize that you're doing the same thing for currency and for money that we did in the early 90s for information. And that got me excited, and I think MetalPay is trying to do it the right way, and that's why I wanted to be a part of it.
Well, we're so happy to have you here, first and foremost. But yeah, ultimately, it's just breaking off those borders and just bringing the world a lot more closer to everybody else, and that way everybody can benefit in this what I like to call an ecosystem, because everybody contributes to it, but it just makes it so much more accessible. And who knows how many, like, there's only numbers can't even tell how much many people can benefit from cryptocurrency, DeFi, blockchains, and even just having those accessibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share another use case with you that doesn't have anything to do with MetalPay directly, but it's the kind of thing that crypto and distributed ledger and what you're doing at MetalPay can change the world. We suffer from health crises in this country around fitness, whether it's obesity, our physical fitness, our obesity. Insurance companies, health companies could work together with a blockchain to create incentives to reward people for achieving fitness goals, for riding that Peloton, for going to the YMCA and joining an aerobic class. And every time you reached a milestone, you could be rewarded. That helps you because you're healthy. It helps insurance companies because it would reduce payouts. And it's a perfect use case for a smart contract that's enabled through digital ledger and cryptocurrency technology that could not exist before our conversation today. That's the way cryptocurrencies and digital ledgers and technologies will change the world. And that goes way beyond banking and deposits and paying checks. That goes into enabling the technology to better people's lives. And that's what's exciting about it.
I'm excited too. That is a good one. I never even thought about it like that. That makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. It's fundamentally what distributed ledger was designed to do: reward people based on milestones and transfer value, right?
Right. Right. And to provide incentives. So
There you go.
what more can you ask for?
Well, and what I love about that, and because I've worked in the system for more than 30 years, that is an entirely and fundamentally capitalist view. It rewards effort, it rewards individual effort, and it's about getting ahead and being progressive at the same time. That to me is a fascinating way to think about things.
Right. I agree. So, out of curiosity, so now we're about almost 2 weeks out from the end of this year. When it comes to, and you can answer this for both Metallicus, or DeFi, or traditional banking, what would you like to see in terms of the regulatory dialogue?
What I'd like to see, and what I would love to help arrange, is I would love to see a summit among the regulatory heads of the FDIC, the CFPB, the OCC, the NCUA, and some of the great thinkers in the crypto space, because we need an education conversation that helps build trust among regulators and those in the industry. Unfortunately, the news this fall is really done damage to the trust relationship among regulators and innovators. And what we need is a summit, and that conversation could look a lot like what we did in 2016 there at the OCC, when we invited fintech companies around the world to come in, share the panel, share the dais with us, and tell us what they were doing to make financial services better. And that conversation alone could build enough energy to help regulators actually finish the work that they're doing on creating a comprehensive, supportive regulatory framework in this country. So that's what that would be in my Christmas stocking if I got exactly what I wished.
Hey, I feel like that would come very soon, because just like how you said, whenever it's not the technology's fault that these things happen, but one thing that you also mentioned is that that just leads to a lot of opportunity where when there's innovators and minds where they want to progress DeFi, progress the dialogue, progress the regulations, and be able to find the silver lining and the opportunities that came associated out of these, what I call learning lessons. It's just maybe it's a little bit hard to sway some people, especially after this past season of events. But then again, there's also more attention on it.
100%.
Does that make sense?
No, it does. Anytime you read something on the front page of the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, you have a choice. You have a choice to run away from it or to run towards it. I was brought up to run towards it. And that's an opportunity for folks in the industry to stand up and say, you know what? Certain things that we've seen this fall, we can't tolerate it. It's not appropriate. We need to be more mature, and we need to do a better job. But regulators, we need your help, because we're a fair business. We're staffed with citizens from around the world who are paying taxes, who are trying to make the world a better place and trying to do their jobs too. Let's find a way to push this forward for everybody. And that's a conversation that is a real possibility. And I know Elon's listening into this important call, and maybe he can throw $1 billion towards it and make it happen.
Please. And also, he needs to help us with the whole desktop on Twitter Spaces on top of that.
Well, I as soon as you told me that I needed to be on the phone, that actually made perfect sense to me. Because in many ways, the desktop has been dead for years, and those chained to their office still use it, like I do. But it made perfect sense that we should be having this conversation on our phones, right? The
Right.
rest of the world has leapt ahead. They've left the desktop, and they access the entire world through this thing in their hand that has more computing power than the Apollo rocket that put a man on the moon.
Let's talk about that. Especially since, just like how you said, we just moved away from desktops, and now our mobile devices have evolved so much that these computers are about 5 inches in our hands.
Yeah.
And that they're actually building out these ecosystems that's only getting more and more and more bigger.
So yes. So I talked about Africa earlier as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, you did. In the early aughts, the early 2000s, we were talking about banking in developing countries. And we talked about banking in such a way that we needed to mobilize banking. We needed companies, the big companies, small companies, companies not even in the banking space, to put banking onto the phones, because developing countries leapfrog ahead. They don't progress incrementally. They don't go through the copper wire phase that our country did. They went from nothing to cellular. They jumped ahead 125 years overnight, while we plodded along, and we had long haul copper, and then we had fiber, and then in some really nice parts of the country we had this thing called wireless. And now the rest of the world is a decade ahead of the US in infrastructure, all because of this little phone that I'm talking to now, and talking to people. I think we have listeners from around the world. And that leapfrog phenomena with technology is an incredibly optimistic thing. So it made perfect sense to me when I couldn't connect on my laptop, and you told me, nope, you got to use your phone. I would have known that instinctually had I been sitting in Mexico City, in Tokyo, or in Rome.
Let's talk this leapfrogging in banking. So how does it work?
Well,
it works. Or how did they do it?
So it works just the same way as in different in different technologies. So I did a lot of work in something called the Community Reinvestment Act, and we talked about technology barriers to access. And there's studies that we found that immigrants and populations that are in low and moderate income areas and low and moderate income population actually have a higher technology adoption rate than the privileged class and the top 10%. That is that's incredibly optimistic. And that's how leapfrogging really works. Because when you've had everything, sometimes you don't grab the new thing. But when you need something to access the entire world, and the phone is all you have, you use it for everything. In the Scandinavian countries, they've been on the phone for 20 years for real-time payments, for interacting with their financial services companies, for interacting with others. And we still talk about mobile pay as something revolutionary. And we've got to get over that. And that's one of the reasons why, in a country with such a long legacy of brick and mortar and hard wires, it's hard for us to cut that wire. While in countries and continents like Africa that that don't have that investment, that sunk cost,
Mm-hmm.
and the maintenance burden associated with it, leapfrogging can really be beneficial and moves much quicker than in countries that are well established.
Yeah, because it allows basically those such as the United States walking. It allows places like Africa to
That's
run
right.
and be able to just grow and progress and be able to not have to go through all the bugs and they get all the bells and whistles right off the bat.
Yeah, that's true. We don't think of ancient Rome much when we think of new technology, but ancient Rome gives us
Right.
really important lessons about the application of technology and the maintenance of technology. So when you think about the rise of Rome, they introduced things like roads, they introduced things like aqueducts, and they built this huge infrastructure. But what brought down Rome? What brought down Rome was the cost of maintaining that huge legacy infrastructure. An entire empire couldn't afford maintaining an aqueduct in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And so the burden of this huge legacy slowed Rome, while other countries were able to implement new technology without that burden of the maintenance. So we've actually seen leapfrogging work in large infrastructure and country building for thousands of years. And what we saw in the 2000s was the exact same thing when it came to telecommunications.
Would you say that it's better to be the first one to do it or the first one to get it right?
So there's an assumption that somebody eventually gets it right in the question. And I'm not sure that it's always best to be the first mover, but I like to be close on their heels.
I like that. That's where, because it's trailblazing in a way, and once that road is paved, then everybody can start adding gold onto the roads and yellow brick roads and everything like that, where it just makes the possibilities just so much more limitless.
Now there is one danger there. There's something in technology development and even in community development called paving the cow path. And my daughters asked me one time why so many roads in Western Maryland were curvy and how come they weren't just straight. And the reality was because when we established and we first did the surveying for the roads, we were following paths that cows and other animals had created for us. We took that path of least resistance, and it was not the most efficient. But because we laid down boulders, cobblestones, then asphalt in these places, and we invested into that path of getting from point A to point B, it was eventually too expensive for us to create a straight line. And so you have to be early enough and smart enough in technology innovation to recognize whether or not you're paving a cow path rather than creating the best line from point A to point B. So when you're in that second position, you have to have your eyes wide open. Is the person in front of you just following an old cow path, or are they helping pave a straight line? And if they get on a cow path, you have to be brave enough to point in the right direction.
I love it. And I honestly have no words. This has been such an amazing dialogue, Bryan.
Well, I appreciate it. You don't get to have these conversations too often in boardrooms. I think boardrooms need more of these kind of conversations. So I really cherish the opportunity to talk to you about these kind of big idea things as we close out 2022, Eric.
Likewise, and me as well. Just to sum it all up, I'm just very curious. Just obviously digital currency has been more of a thing in terms of late or the early 2010s, started to be much more discussed in the late 2010s. But going back to your career and your resume dating back 30 years, and that including going through several different presidential terms, and um, how how much has those dialogues been changing throughout as the times went on, as the administrations have been changing, where the culture has just been kind of shifting around in terms of traditional money to digital?
Yeah, I actually see the conversation continuing the same arc. While progress is not a straight line, the conversations have always been productive. And I think you will know that we've made it when we quit talking about digital currency and that's just currency. Right?
Have it on equal footing.
Well, yeah. I mean, as long as we continue to categorize it, you balkanize it, you put it in a corner. The reality is, I haven't written a check in years. I've been working digitally with my money for years. I don't call it digital money. It's just money. And
Right.
and when people are in the industry, we get excited about that sparkly new thing and we want to describe it as something special. What we were trying to do to close this out and bring it full circle to what we were trying to do with the phrase responsible innovation, we were trying
Mm-hmm.
to domesticate what was wild. And what was wild was this cryptocurrency. It will stop being a foreign, scary thing when we just call it currency, when it's just part of the way we use our money every day. As long as we call it something new and scary, there's going to be those people who are excited by it, but there's going to be a lot more people who will continue to be afraid of it. And that's the arc of the conversation that I've been a part of for the last 20 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Bryan K. Hubbard. I don't think anybody else can put on their the speaker where they can clap, but we can have the clap emojis right on here. That would be great. But Bryan, it's been such an absolute pleasure just getting to just pick your ear a bit and just learn so much, not only about you, but your insight as to how everything has adapted, how it started, how it's changing, and what's to come. And I'm just thrilled to be on the ride with it, and it seems that you are too. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, you can find Bryan K. Hubbard on Twitter by clicking his account, Bryan K. Hubbard. He also has a website, bryankhubbard.com. And ultimately, this has been Metallicus Live. You have all been part of something truly special, and more special things are going to come. This will be on our podcast platforms very soon, so stay on the lookout for that. My name has been Eric. It's been an absolute